Recording in progress.
Okay, welcome to the OVERMUGGED September holiday revision event. This is going to be for the English revision. Okay, I'm going to start off with a self-introduction and then talk a bit about OVERMUGGED before we go into the lesson for today. Okay, my name, what you can call me Miss Olivia, you can call me Teacher Olivia as well, that's up to you. A bit about my background, I have taught across levels of students from pre-primary, primary up to secondary as well. And right now, I'm focused on teaching primary and secondary level, okay? So that's why I'm in charge of the lower secondary sessions. Now, my commitment to you as a teacher is to help you better your relationship with the content. So what do I mean by that is help you unlearn beliefs you have about English, maybe some components you feel like you can't score very well in, and also help you unlearn beliefs about your own abilities in doing English as well. So give you more confidence, give you the tools you can use to answer the specific questions as well. Okay. Now, a bit more about me is I'm a very huge animal lover, particularly for dogs. As you can see from all of the pictures I have, all of these are my pets, my previous dogs. And a fun fact about me is that at one point in my life, I had 8 pets in my house. So I always like to tell my students, you can try and guess what are the 8 pets. It's of different types. Up to you. You can try and guess it later on. Okay. Anyone has pets as well? Or dogs in particular? No? Okay. Then in my free time, what do I like to do? Either my hobby is to do dance. So specifically, the dance I like to do is Latin dance. It's a pretty niche area, so not very commonly found in your schools as CCAs as well. Most of the time, you have to go to the specific studios. Other than that, I also like to play some games. These are the 3 games that I would always go back and play again and again. So something that I always will go back to. First is Animal Crossing. Maybe some of you may have heard about this. This was very big during the COVID-19 times. The second is Hogwarts Legacy, because I'm a huge Harry Potter fan as well. And then the other is Sims 4. I'm not sure if any of you still play or heard of Sims 4. Have you heard of Sims 4? Do any of you still play? Not really. It's not very big thing for the youngsters now, right? But it's a huge game in the past, and because they keep releasing a lot of new packs, so I can say I spent a lot of money on packs for Sims 4 as well. Okay, and then other than that, I also like to listen to some podcasts. Particularly, I'm very drawn to true crime podcasts. So one of my favorite podcasts is over here. If you like true crime, you may want to hear that as well. Okay, now moving on to a bit more about OVERMUGGED. So here is more about OVERMUGGED. At OVERMUGGED, we're not just a place where you can come and then we help you better your grades, but we're also trying to build a community here. So as you can see, we have all of these branches across Singapore with our newest branch, which is Novena. And then why I'm telling you this is that actually a perk for our students here is that you have the choice to come down to our branch and you can use our space here to study. So instead of going to the library or going to cafes, you can come here and study. And we also provide the snacks for you as well. Okay. And then a bit more about our results here. So we have a high percentage of our students, they achieve their academic goals and then they go on to their choice universities too. Another thing is that our tutors are very experienced in the subjects that we teach, so you can rest assured that you will be guided very well. Okay. Next up, the worksheets you have for today, just take it as a sneak peek of the type of resources that you would receive if you join us as students. So personally, I will also give you condensed notes for my own classes as well. Maybe we'll go through extra grammar rules. We'll do extra exercises for paraphrasing, for summary. So this kind of thing. Subjective to each teacher, but you're sure to get good resources. So some of the resources includes created notes. Created notes are all of your condensed topics into one thick booklet. That's one thing. And then if you are interested in the science lessons, we also go through your practicals as well. So that is something that will be very helpful. You're not just learning the theories, you actually get to do the experiments too. Okay, so I'm going to stop the quick introduction here, and then I'll talk a bit more about the classes at the end of today's session here. Okay, so now let's go into the lesson for today. So this is the idea I have for today. There are three parts that we're going to go through. The first is your visual text. Next is your comprehension. And then the last is your summary. So three portions. And then I will have a break in between after we complete each of the component. Okay, so that's the idea for today. Okay, so let's take a look at the visual text first. The first part that we are going to be going through is how exactly you should be breaking down your visual text. How you're going to go about doing the analysis as well. So there is something that I would like to call, this is a framework that you can use, which I call your PACT. Okay, the first is talking about your purpose. Next is the audience, who exactly is each of the texts dedicated to. And then you have your context here, followed by your tone and then your identity as well. So I'm going to go through each of it, just write down according to what I write here as well. So when they're asking you about what is the purpose of text 1 or text 2, this is just referring to the intention of the poster.
Is it the English class?
Yes.
Oh. Sorry, I'm late.
That's fine. Do both of you have the worksheet? You don't have the worksheet? Is there a seat beside over there? Okay. Going to back what I said just now, this is referring to the intention of the poster. What you need to have when they're asking you about the purpose is to have action words as well. So what kind of action words do I need? So answers need action words. For example, I can say text 1's purpose is to raise awareness regarding a certain issue. Or they want to encourage readers or audience to take up a certain activity. Or maybe they want to promote a certain event. They want to persuade the particular audience to do something. Or they want to warn them about a certain issue as well. Okay. Then next up, for audience, this is just asking you who exactly is the target audience. For this case, if your questions ask you who the target audience is, avoid using general terms. So avoid using general terms such as general public. Okay, be very specific with who the demographic is. So for example, if I'm talking about age, the specific age groups that you would have can include this few. I can talk about toddlers. I can talk about young children, teenagers. Then you have adults and the elderly. So this is what I mean by your answers have to be very specific. So don't just say it's referring to different age group. What is the specific age group that you are referring to? Okay. And the next part for context. Now, how you're going to break down context is into two categories. The first is looking at the words alone. So this is just based on the words. You can further break it down into three more categories because you can say that words can be telling you about information. So this is what we call your informative content. Under informative content, sometimes they would like to include statistics as well. Then all you need to remember for statistics is that the reason why they include this is because they want to convey severity or they want to convey urgency regarding the issue. Okay. Second category is what we call instructional, or you can call it a call to action. So this is when you see verbs in the text. So examples, they may include such verbs. All of these are action words for your target audience or your readers to do. Okay. And the last part is what we call inclusivity. Inclusive words includes words such as us, we, our, together, you. All of these are examples of inclusive words. The purpose of these words is so that the reader is directly addressed, and then you want to build a personal connection with the reader. Okay, so this is the first part for your context. Ensure you have enough space because there is a second category that we're going to talk about, which is the image. So all of the visual details. Okay, I'm going to erase the first part. Now, second category is still under context. We're going to look at the image itself now. This is all of the visual details. It is usually only for your text one. So in this case, you're going to be thinking about the literal description first, which is just exactly what you see. Okay, literal description is just explaining what you see exactly in the stimulus. The second is to think about the figurative explanation. Figurative explanation answers all of your why questions. Why is a particular image being chosen? Why is it in this particular poster as well? Or what is the intended effect on the audience? Okay, so if they are asking you this particular question in your visual text question, this also requires an action word. So answers require action words. So it's very similar to your purpose question. So your action words here will differ. So instead of the previous set of action words, examples would include purchasing, donating, participating, sympathizing, or even signing up for a certain event. So all of these action words are what the audience will do. Okay, all good. If it's all good, let's take a look at the tone. Okay. Now, moving on to tone, just think about how you would sound if you were the one presenting the specific information. Some examples of tone can include friendly. So especially if this is targeted towards children or maybe it's targeted towards family. It can also have a tone of urgency if it's talking about a specific issue, maybe about climate change, then there is a sense of urgency here. It can also have a tone of persuasion. If you want to convince the target audience to do something. And they want to encourage as well. Okay. And then the last part for identity is just to understand where your sources are from. So for this particular information is provided for you already. Okay. So we have two visual text exercises. The first exercise, I will run through it with you. I will show you how you can apply PECT. Then the second exercise, I will get you to attempt it. And then you can try the questions out as well. Okay, so let's take a look at the first exercise here. This is your stimulus for exercise 1. This is an online poster. And the first part is, this exactly is your identity. So where exactly your sources are from.
Ma'am, I'm not uh,
Okay, those online, all good? I'm gonna move on. Okay, so this is your identity, where the sources are from. You know, because of the SG, this is a local source as well. So probably it's related to local context. Okay. First thing that you should start off by breaking down is the content here. So that means you look at the words, you look at the visual details as well. So this is your main heading here. They are saying that unsecured devices leave you vulnerable against unseen criminals. That's your first. Just based on this statement alone, you can start to mark out the words here. So just now, when we went through context under words, we talked about specific categories. You falls under what we call your inclusivity category. So this is one of your inclusive words. Okay. Then if you go to the bottom here, this then is your subheading. So they're asking you to add the Scam Shield app to detect scam SMSs, block scam calls, and to install the antivirus app to protect you. So here we have action words. They're asking you to add, they're asking you to install as well. These are your instructional words. Okay, so once you have broken down the words, then you can take a look at the image here. So if you take a look at the image, I will start off by just literally describing it. So what do you see exactly? So I can say that there's a man, he looks like he is invisible, and he is picking through the woman's belongings here. Okay, so this is just my literal description. There's an invisible man. What is he doing? He's picking through the lady's belongings. So you know, firstly, this is an invasion of privacy already. Okay. Then the second part is to think about what exactly is the figurative explanation. So why did they portray the man as being invisible? Now, this is connected to your main heading just now. They talked about unseen criminals. In this case, this invisible man is trying to represent the unseen criminals that your statement is trying to explain. So the invisible man, he represents the unseen criminals. So similarly, if your devices are unsecured, you are inviting all of this into your devices. Okay, so you're just inviting all of these unseen criminals to invade your privacy. That's explaining your figurative part. Now, from here, you should be able to start to decipher what then is the effect on the audience. So after they have looked at this text, they have seen the image, they have also looked at the statement as well. So your main headings, what will the target audience then do? So this is the next part. So answering the effect on the target audience. So remember just now I mentioned this type of questions, your answers require action words here. One way of answering, you can say that the audience, perhaps they will reflect and they will potentially download the app. So that they can protect themselves now. Okay, so this is explaining the effect. Next, I want to ask, what is the purpose then? So why did this particular organizer want to create such a poster to show to the target audience? So here you can say that maybe they want to raise awareness, ensure that the target audience know of all of these malware attacks. Or you can also say that they're trying to encourage the target audience to download the app as well. Okay, so that's your purpose. Next part is to think about the tone. So tone is pretty closely linked with your purpose. If I talk about trying to encourage or to raise awareness, you can say that the tone is trying to be cautionary. And then finally, who exactly is the target audience here? You can say that they are users of digital devices. Okay, so just by applying your PCT, you should be able to analyze the entire text. The next part, we're going to try to apply this to your text 2. Text 2, the only thing that's different is that you do not have to analyze any of the visual details at all. Everything else will be the same. Okay, once you're done, you can take a look at text 2. Quickly run through text 2 so you have an idea of what it is about. Okay, have read through text 2. Okay. Now, let's apply the same thing to text 2 in this case. This time, text 2 is giving you more information. First thing you have is they have given you statistics as well. And if you read on here, these are all suggestions on how you can better protect yourself as well. Okay. So first thing I can identify for text 2 is that the content here is more informative. You have statistics. So 32 million. And then towards the bottom, they talk about the suggestions to protect yourself. Okay. Afterwards, think about the effect then. What is the effect on the target audience? After they have read through all of this, what will they then want to do? Effect for this can be pretty similar to text 1. The audience, they will reflect on what they have been doing. And probably they will follow the suggested methods as well. Okay. Text 2, target audience is the same. They are still targeted towards users of digital devices. But this time, what exactly would the purpose be? So why are they giving statistics? Why are they giving suggestions as well? Because they want to try and promote all of these solutions to users. They want to get them to use it instead. Okay. And then the last part is the tone. The tone is informative because they're giving you information about the situation. They're also giving you suggestions as well. I'm going to move on to the common questions that are tested for your visual text. This is your first question. Question 1 is asking you to refer to text 1. And they say that the poster has the phrase unseen criminals here. Explain how the illustration supports the main message. So first thing, when they ask about illustration, they're asking you about the visual details. So regarding the image. This is a question that wants you to refer to a particular detail, and you have to explain that detail while also explaining the effect of it at the end. Okay, so there are 3 parts that you will need for this type of question. I need you to tell me what the detail is. So describe the detail. In this case, your detail has to do with the visual details. What is the one particular visual detail that you're going to pick out? The second part is to explain the detail. And then the last part, depending on what the question is asking, you are going to explain the effect or the purpose. Okay, so 3 things that you need to include here. All right. So I'm going to run through how to answer this part. Here, they're asking about unseen criminals. What exactly is the visual detail that is related to this? It is related to the portrayal of the man. So just now I mentioned how the man is portrayed is trying to represent the unseen criminals here. So the first part you need to do is just to explain to me what is the description of it. So you can start off by saying that the illustration shows an invisible man and then what he is doing, he's searching through an elderly woman's handbag. Okay, this is the description. Afterwards, I have to continue on to explain about the detail. So what does this show? It's trying to show how these hidden online criminals, they can also steal your personal information. Now, this part is your explanation. Okay, but I'm not done. I still have to explain how does it support the main message. When you're talking about the main message, this is talking about the purpose. So what are the intentions of text 1? I will continue down here. So this reinforces the message of warning users. You can say they want to warn them to be careful of their own personal online data or to be vigilant and protect their data. Okay, so this is explaining the main message here. Okay, question 2. I would like you to try question 2 because we went through PACT. We also identified the purpose for both of the texts already. Now, can you try crafting your answer for question 2? Remember, question 2, when asking about purpose, always include your action words in your answers as well. Okay, can you give it a try? So they're asking about the difference. I will go through question 2 in about a minute. I think all done. All right. Question 2, difference from text 1 and text 2. So first off, just now we talked about how text 1, the purpose is to raise awareness, or you want to warn, or you want to caution the target audience. So those are accepted action words that you can use. Text 1 raises awareness. So just check against the action words that you have used in your own answer. But ensure that you also explain you want them to raise awareness, warn, and caution about what particular thing of the, you can say, growing threat of cyber attacks or malware attacks. That's fine as well. And then while text 2, so it's trying to promote the solutions. Okay, so this is the difference between the purpose of the two texts. all good. All right, let's move on. Next part, this is where you're going to read statements and then you're going to decipher whether it applies to one, two, both, or neither of it. First up, they ask you whether the tone is informative in this case. When they're asking about informative, there are certain clues that you can use to help you decipher whether it's true or not. The first is usually based on how they explain their issue. So based on explanation. Sometimes, or most of the time, they like to include statistics. It explains concepts, ideas, events. So it's very detailed. Second, if it uses neutral language as well. So no emotional words. That's being informative. Then let me explain part B, and then afterwards I'll let you try. Okay, can? Right. Then part B here, they're asking about whether there's an intended call to action from the readers. So same thing, there are certain clues that you can use as well when it's talking about call to action. First is whether there are instructional words. So remember we went through this when we were trying to analyze the words. So instructional language. So is the reader directly addressed? Does it include motivating or encouraging tones? That's the second part. So it includes inspiring or persuasive words. Okay. Once you have finished writing this down, then can you try, based on the clues I have given you, or the checklist I've given you, can you try and decipher whether a statement applies to one of it, both, or none of it at all? Okay, just 1 minute to do this. Okay, I think you're all done. All right, let's go through. First one, the tone is informative. Answer for this would be text 2. Why? Because text 2 includes your statistics, includes all of your various methods as well on how you can better protect yourself. Why not text 1 is because text 1 only warns and instructs readers to do certain things, which is to download the Scam Shield app. So it's not exactly very informative as well. Okay. Then for part B, answer for this would be text 1, because they are directly telling the readers to download the app and then to protect themselves. Okay, all good. Now I'm going to move on to exercise 2. This time for exercise 2, I would like you to try and attempt this on your own. So apply the PCT and also apply what we have learned to answer the questions as well. So if you take a look at the questions for exercise 2, question 1, they are asking you to take note of the heading here. And they're asking for the effect on the readers as well. So this is very similar to question 1 in the previous exercise. You need 3 elements to answer the question. You have to describe, you have to explain, and then explain to me what is the effect at the end. Okay, so just take note of that. All right. And then before I let you try this, let me just go through this part. Question 3, part A. This time they're asking about sense of urgency. This is a different set of clues for you. When they're asking you about sense of urgency, what you can look out for is whether there are time pressure words. So you will have words such as noun, immediately, or they give you phrases like you must act now. These are all time pressure words. Another is if they warn of consequences. They're highlighting the negative outcomes. Third is if they like to use modal verbs. So you would have words such as should, must, need to, have to. Okay. Okay, now I'm going to give you time to attempt the questions, and then afterwards we'll go through the answers, and then I'm going to give you a break. Sorry. One more minute. Okay. Okay, let's take a look at the answers. So first part, you're gonna have to indicate to me what is the detail that you want to describe. In this case, because this is impacting the reader, so think about details that draws a connection to the reader based on just this heading here. What exactly is the connection here? You can talk about how they use the word you. And then what we learned just now is that this is your inclusive words. So they're trying to draw a connection with the readers by directly addressing the readers here. So this is going to be my detail that I'll be describing. So I'm going to firstly explain that the heading, it directly addresses the reader. Okay, so it's using the inclusive word you. This is my description. Then you have to explain what is the usage of the word you, because they're trying to create a personal connection with the readers. Okay, so that the issue is relevant to them. And then the last part, explain to me what will they then do in the end. So task, I'm gonna write here. The reader, you can say they will feel encouraged to reduce food waste. This time you're explaining effect because that's what they're asking for. Okay. Next, question 2. This time you're taking a look at text 1 and they're asking you, how does the image contribute to the purpose of the text? So this time you have to explain the purpose and they want you to take note of the visual details. Okay. Firstly, you're going to be writing down what exactly is your visual detail, so the description of it. So based on the visual text here, this is your visual detail. So it's an amusement park, but they use ingredients from food wastage. Okay, that's your detail that you're going to be talking about. So you're going to say that the image shows an amusement park. So it's made out of wasted food. This is your description. Okay, and then you explain what is it trying to suggest. So it's suggesting that throwing away food is equivalent to throwing away the chance of having fun. Okay, this is your explanation. And then explain the purpose. So task, encouraging the audience. So they will reflect on their own food consumption habits, and then they will probably think twice before they just easily throw away food. This is explaining your purpose. Now, common misconception for visual text, because the marks is not a lot, you assume that your answers are very short as well, but not necessary. Most of the times, why students cannot score for your visual text is you are not explaining the detail and the connection to your final answer. So you only explain the purpose, but you're not linking the detail here. You won't get the full marks for that. Okay. Next, let's take a look at question 3 here. First, they're asking about sense of urgency in this case. Answer for this will be text 1. Because text 1, it directly highlights the statistics regarding how much food wastage there is. And then for part B, they're talking about the steps to solve food loss. None of the texts mention about this at all. So it will be neither. Okay. All right, I'm gonna give you a break. It's a bit past the time that I wanted to give you. So I'm gonna give you a short break this time, 5 minutes, and then we'll move on to the comprehension section. Okay? If you need to use the washroom, you have to go all the way to the lift lobby to use the handicap toilet. All right, let's resume. I'm gonna go through your various comprehension question types first. Ensure that you're very familiar with the various types because when you answer it, it requires different answer structures as well. Okay? So let's do a quick recap. Firstly, direct question. These are pretty straightforward. This is where you can find your answers stated in the passage. So answers are stated in the passage. Unless they are asking you to answer in your own words. So you can copy directly. But if they're asking you to answer in your own words, then please paraphrase it. Okay. Next, you have your inference questions. So complete opposite of your direct questions. You have to use clues from the passage and help you figure out what is being implied. Okay, I'm gonna move down. Next, you have your language questions. So this is asking you to explain a certain quotation. So the question would ask you to identify or to explain what a character or the author means by a certain phrase. Or they may also ask you to identify your literary devices. Okay. We'll go through your common devices. So 4 common devices. First you have is your simile. So similes are comparisons between 2 things, and they like to use the word like or as in their phrases. Second is our metaphor. Quite similar to your simile because it's a comparison between 2 things as well. but this time they do not use the word like or as. Then you have your personification. So for this device, you're trying to give non-human things, human qualities or characteristics. Okay. And then the last device I'll go through is our idioms. So this is referring to an expression that likes to use figurative language, but it's very different from each of the individual words. So the whole idea of it. Okay. These are just your 4 commonly tested literary devices. There are much more. So I'm just going to go through the commonly tested few. Okay. I'm going to erase this part. Next up, you have your direct plus inference. So this is like a half-half kind of question. Part of it, you can find it in the passage, then part of it, you have to still infer. Okay, once you're done, you can flip over. We'll go to language plus inference questions. Okay, let's move on. Language plus inference question. There are several types to this. So let's look at the different types. The first type you would have is your quote and explain questions. So this is where they will ask you to find evidence from the passage, probably 2 or 3 details, and then you have to explain your quotation. For this kind, there is a certain structure that you should follow. So depending on whether they're asking you for 2 or 3 details, you will start off with your first quotation. So in comes your quotation. Q1 stands for quotation 1. I want you to explain your quotation. So quotation 1, you can say highlights this and this. So that is your explanation 1. And then afterwards, you still have to link it back to your question. So task, emphasizing. Then your linkage one is, what is the context related to the question? Okay, now if they're asking you for your second detail, you do the same. You write here secondly, and then you give me the same structure. Your quotation, your explanation, and then your linkage. So you write out the same thing for second detail and then third detail. So that's your first language plus inference question. Quote and explain. Your second type is when they're asking you to identify your literary device. Now, this is pretty similar to your language, but this time they want you to go further and explain the effectiveness. So an example, your answer will be, this is using personification. It emphasizes this and this effectively. Okay. And then the last type for language plus inference is when they are giving you a quotation. So a tested quotation, you have to decipher this tested quotation. So that means explain to me what the quotation is saying. So I'm just going to put here, quotation is X, and then you have to link it back to context. Okay, so that is Y. So example of this, you will see questions like, what does X suggest or tell us about Y? These are the type of question it is. Okay. Okay, next up is your punctuation. For punctuation, two things I need you to write down is you have to explain to me what the punctuation does in the sentence. So explain what the punctuation is doing in the sentence. Your answer structure would then have to include function. So what is it for? Is it trying to emphasize something? Is it trying to highlight something? Plus, explain the context. So it can be highlighting this character's feelings towards something else. That's your context here. Okay. Then last part is irony. Firstly, understand what irony is referring to. So this refers to an event that is the opposite of what you expected. Okay. So answer structure. You have to explain two things. The first thing is what is expected. Second thing is what actually happened. If you have finished writing this down, you can start to read the passage and try to identify the question types as well. Okay, I'll give you 10 minutes to do this. Read the passage and then identify the question types. Right now, you should be reading the passage and trying to identify the question types. Okay, I think most of you have finished reading the passage already. I'm going to go on to the questions. So for the questions today, it's going to be a we do, then you do kind of setting. And if you were identifying the question types, you realize that all of the questions are either your language plus inference, or your inference question. That's the focus for today, okay? I'm going to start off with question 3. So I'm going to jump around. I'm not going to go through the chronological order. So can you take a look at question 3 first? This is our first language plus inference type of question. Okay, this is your L plus I. So remember just now, I mentioned one of your L plus I question is when they ask you to identify literary device and to also explain the effectiveness. Okay, so this is your first type. So based on this question here, they're asking you, when they say video games remain my best friend, what device are they trying to use here? So the first thing is to think about, video games here is a non-human thing. My best friend is something that you will use to describe a human being. Okay, then you can think back. Just now you went through the list of devices. Which of it fits into this context? This would be your personification. Okay, so personification is being used here. Then you have to explain the effectiveness of it. Why is the character describing video games like his own best friend? So then you have to start to think about ideas or connotations related to a best friend. You use this when you're trying to describe someone that you have a close relationship with. Or someone that you know you can rely on. That's what a best friend is supposed to do. So keep this idea of a best friend, and then you're going to explain in this case, why is it effective? Is because they're trying to highlight how close their relationship is. Second thing to take note, if they're asking about effectiveness, can you please use it shows or it emphasizes? So how close the relationship was between the writer and his games. Another accepted answer is you can say it's trying to emphasize how the writer turns to gaming for comfort. So that's another way to say it. Or emphasize how the writer turns to gaming for comfort or emotional support. Okay, this is your first L plus I question. Okay, once you're done, you can take a look at question 7. Question 7 is exactly the same. Can you attempt question 7 on your own this time? What is the device being used, and can you try to explain the effectiveness? Okay, please attempt question 7. The clue for you is think about the comparison that is being made here. What is being compared here? There are two things being compared. Okay, let's go through. Question 7. Here, the writer says, I drown in pixels while real life gaps for air. What is the device being used in this phrase, and explain its effectiveness here? Okay, if you manage to identify this accurately, your answer should be metaphor. So remember, just now we talked about how metaphors are referring to comparison between two things. And in this case, because there is the absence of the word like or as, you know this should not be a simile. This is a metaphor. It's a direct comparison. What is the comparison then between the two things? They are essentially comparing gaming to the act of drowning. Okay. It has directly stated for you, this is talking about the act of drowning. Where you get the clue about it's related to gaming is the word pixels. So this gives you a clue as well. So what is the effectiveness in this case? Sorry. So it is effective because it's trying to highlight how damaging the effect is due to gaming. Okay, because this particular phrase is trying to say that the writer is being overwhelmed by gaming. That's why it's highlighting how bad the effects can be. Okay, so check against your answer. Okay, once you're done, I'm going to move on to the next language plus inference question, which is question 5. Can you take a look at question 5 here? This is also your language plus inference question. This has to do with giving you a particular quotation. So you have to decipher this, you have to break it down, and then you have to link it back to the context here. So they're saying that based on this phrase, constantly teetered around on eggshells, what is the connection with how the writer's wife felt when he played video games here? Okay. So you're going to have to start breaking down the words first. First word to break down is what exactly does teetered mean? The general meaning of this is to move unsteadily. Okay, and then they have also given you the word eggshell here. So this gives you another clue that is referring to something very fragile. So idea of something fragile or the need to be careful. Okay, so this is the first thing you're going to do. You have to break down the given quotation here. Afterwards, you're going to have to link it back to your context, which is this particular part. So you will say that the phrase is trying to suggest that the wife was or had to act extremely cautiously around the writer when he was playing video games. Okay. This is how you break down this particular question. If you're done with this, then I want you to attempt question 9. Question 9 is exactly the same style as question 5. You have to decipher the given quotation first and then link it back to the context. So please go to question 9 and attempt that question. Okay, I think most of you are good. Right, let's look at the answer for this. So this time you are referring to the phrase, a heavy fog settled over my days. And what is it trying to suggest about the writer's mood and life during this particular period? So first thing you're going to do, decipher the tested quotation here. What exactly is it referring to? So a clue for you is the part about the heavy fog. You can break it down in terms of the literal meaning first. So what exactly is it usually referring to? So literal meaning, this is just referring to thick clouds in the surrounding atmosphere. Then figuratively, you can start to think about if it is you in that particular situation, how then would you feel? Okay, and your answer also has to be describing the writer's mood as well. So in this case, the phrase suggests that the writer felt some answers that is accepted: sadness,
That's
depressed. Okay, can. Joyless, dull, depressed, gloomy, downcast. Okay. All right. Let's move on to the last language plus inference question, which is question 8. So far, we have gone through the first 2 language plus inference question types. This is the last for the language plus inference question. So this is exactly what I mentioned just now. They will ask you to find evidence from the passage. So they want 3 details, and then they want you to explain as well. Explain the use of language in paragraph 6 to show the effects of his gaming habit. So this is your context to the question. So the effects of his gaming habit. Okay, so I'm going to go to paragraph 6 now. Okay, and then here I'm going to pick out details that tell me about the effect of the gaming habit. Okay, here. First one, it can be this. That's one of it. And then this will be another. So this can be quotation 1. This can be quotation 2. Then there should be one more, which is this part. Each session blur into the next. This will be quotation 3. Okay, so just take note, Q1, Q2 is not question 1, question 2, is your quotation 1, quotation 2, because I'm going to refer to this later on. Okay, then I'm going to go back to question 8. This is how I'm going to explain your answer and the structure. So I follow the structure just now. Firstly, I put in quotation 1. In your exams, please write out the full quotation, but just for now, I'm going to just put down quotation 1 here. Okay? And then my first quotation is talking about drowning in pixels while real life gaps for air. I have to explain what this means. So it's trying to highlight how the writer was, you can say he was very overwhelmed, or he was completely consumed by video games. Okay, this is your explanation one. Then I have to link it back to the question. What is my linkage is to explain how it shows the effects of his gaming habit. So thus emphasizing how he neglected his real life responsibilities. Okay, this is your link. Just take note, your linkage is explaining this part. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing for the second quotation, then I'll get you to try the third quotation. So secondly, I will put in quotation 2 here. And then I will say it indicates. So quotation 2 is talking about how his reality is beginning to pixelate. So this is trying to say that he is losing control of his reality. Okay, this is explanation 2. Then you link it back to the part here. How does it show the effects? So you can say this is highlighting the damaging effects of his addiction. Okay, then this is link 2. Now I want you to try explaining the last quotation. So quotation 3, which is the last, is talking about how each session blurred into the next. Explain to me what exactly does the quotation mean, and then link it back to the question, how does it show the effect of his gaming habit? Okay, so please try to do the last quotation. Okay, majority of you look like you're done. Let's go through the last one. Last quotation is referring to how each session blurs into the next. So, first two you mention firstly, second quotation you use secondly. For your third detail, you can either use thirdly or lastly, okay? Then you follow the same structure. So, quotation 3, what is it trying to suggest? It's trying to suggest that the writer or he lost track of time thing. How disconnected he is with the real world. Okay, so for your quote and explain question for this type, this is how you should structure your answers. Okay. Now I'm going to move on to your language question, which should be question 1. So can you go back to question 1? Let's take a look at that. For question 1 here, language question is when they want you to explain a word. So they're just asking you what the writer means when he describes video games as omnipresent. So first thing to do is to break down the tested quotation here. General meaning of omnipresent is that it's referring to something that is widely or it is constantly encountered. Okay, then your answer, you have to link it to the question. It is being used to describe video games here. So you will say that he means that video games were, you can say it's always present around, or is surrounded. Always surrounding him constantly. Okay, just make sure for this type. First thing is to decipher the tested code. And then after that, you link it back to the context here. The context here is about the video games. Okay. Next one, we can take a look at question 2. When they're asking about the tone of a certain character, this is your inference question. So this, you have to refer to paragraph 2 because it's regarding the father in question. So that means go back to paragraph 2 and take a look at how the father is being described. So you realize that in paragraph 2, it talks about how the father is in and out of the writer's life, and that there were neglect and tearful bouts of abuse as well. So think about if that were you in the writer's own position, what would you feel? How would you sound as you're saying this particular portion? So two of this gives you the clues about how the writer feels about the father. Okay, so from here, you know, they don't really have a good relationship at all. You can say that his tone is resentful. Yeah, can as well. Tone is resentful, tone is bitter as well. That's a good. Okay. Next question, let's take a look at our irony question. So question 4 is your irony question. Remember just now we went through irony questions, 2 things you have to include for your answer structure. What is the expectation, and then what actually happened. So what is ironic about the writer's belief that video games were helping him cope with his problems here? Okay, this is referring to paragraph 4 in this case. So at first he felt that video games is supposed to be my best friend, always linked to very closely to video games, but he still gets angry and things only get worse. So this particular whole part here is indicating how ironic the situation is, because he thought video games would help, but sorry, not it was, it made it worse. Okay. So for irony question, first part is to explain expectations. So the writer expected video games to help him. So this is the expectation. But it only made his anger worse. Or you can say it only caused more problems in his life. Okay, then this part is the actuality. So irony questions have to explain these two parts. Okay. And let's go through the last question, which is question 6. So question 6, this is asking about the effect of a single word sentence in paragraph 5. You can take this as a punctuation question. It does not include actual punctuation, but it includes your type form. So type form is when sometimes your passages would like to make the words bolded. So bold or italics. These are all called type form. You will count it under your punctuation questions. So if you go back to paragraph 5, the last single word sentence is period. That is the single word. So remember just now for punctuation questions, you have to explain the function and then you have to explain the context here. You have to go back to take a look at what the context is. So here, before this part is talking about how an anger problem and video gaming do not go together. And then he says this is period, full stop. So this is trying to emphasize or to reiterate that, or the effect of how harmful video gaming has been, or it does not go together with him. Okay, so the one word sentence creates a strong emphasis, or you can say it creates a serious tone. This is explaining the function. 2, highlight that the writer, he now understands the true harm of his behavior. Okay, this is the context here. Okay, we're going to move on to the summary portion. Because we are a bit short on time now, I'm just going to push through so that we can end on time. And I don't have to delay your release. So for summary, I'm going to run through how you're going to approach a summary question. First up for summary, what you need to do is to take note of 3 steps. So you're going to start off by analyzing the question. Analyzing the question, first thing is to highlight what you need to find. So that means if you're referring to the question for today, they're asking you to summarize the problems caused by addiction to smartphones. That is your information. Second part is to mark out your sourcing paragraphs. Okay. You are looking at paragraphs 3 to 5 here. Then the last part is to read the given starting words. Okay, so that's just analyzing the question. Next part is when you are sourcing for the points. Okay, all good. I'm gonna move on. So here, when you're sourcing for points, just remember these two parts. Ensure that your points answers the question directly. The next thing is that points should also be distinct from one another. So this is to avoid repetition of points. Okay, take note of these two parts. Right. Then the next part I'm going to go through is the paraphrasing strategies. So let's take a look at the various paraphrasing strategies we have. Okay, all good. Okay. Turn over all the way to page 20. I have 3 sets of paraphrasing strategies for you. The first set is to focus on your synonyms, definitions, and your antonyms here. So when you're thinking about synonyms, what you're thinking about is to replace a word with another word of similar meaning. Okay, so I have an example here, which is oceans are contaminated by plastic waste. I want to use a synonym for this. I will find another similar word to replace this particular word. I can say oceans are polluted by plastic waste instead. So change contaminated to polluted. Okay, very similar meaning. Then I can also use definitions to paraphrase as well. This is when you're replacing your word or phrases with a brief explanation, or you're explaining the meaning of a certain word or phrase. Okay. So in this case, my given sentence is single-use plastics are items designed to be disposable. I have to explain what disposable is. So disposable is referring to when you're using something for one time and then you just throw it away. So to be used once and then thrown away. Okay, this is using definition. You explain a single word. Then next we have antonyms. In this case, you're finding other words of the opposite meaning. Okay, so I have my example, which is talking about people reducing the use of disposable plastic bags. I want to say the opposite of this. I will say that people are increasing the use of reusable bags. So exactly the opposite. Okay, then next we have categorization and generalization. So categorization is when you're putting many examples into one group or one category. This comes, so this comes in handy when you have a group of items and it can all be consolidated into one entire group. So I have bottles, I have straws, I have bags as well. I can group all of this as plastic waste. Now, if you are looking at generalization instead, this is different in the sense that you want to describe a specific thing in a broader way. Okay, so you have recycling plastic bottles. This is one way to target pollution. So this is referring to strategies to help pollution. So this is what I mean by generalization. From a very specific strategy, I turn it into the entire group. It's referring to all the strategies as one. Second, plastic packaging makes up 80% of marine debris. If I change it to generalize it, I can say the majority. So my numbers can also change to words. Makes up. So this works for small numbers as well. Instead of saying majority, then use minority or less. Okay. Last strategy is called inferring the big idea. So this is talking about rewriting your meaning in much simpler terms instead of focusing on your word for word changes. By simplifying. Okay, so let's try for this. Many beaches are buried under a blanket of plastic bottles, bags, and wrappers because people discard plastic carelessly. What does this suggest about the state of the beaches? So usually this is very helpful when you're referring to figurative language. So your figurative language here is this part, buried under a blanket. You have to understand what exactly this is talking about. So to bury something under a blanket, you're trying to say that something is completely covered by a large amount. So it's a very big amount that you get overwhelmed or the particular thing gets hidden away. Okay, that's what it's trying to say. So this is trying to suggest that beaches are so heavily populated and overwhelmed by waste, then that's why it becomes very unpleasant. Okay. Now, another tip, when you are doing word for word changes, this is when you're usually using synonyms, definitions, or antonyms. A common problem that students would face is which word should I paraphrase then? So this is just a tip for you. Search for verbs or adjectives in the sentence. Those are usually easier to paraphrase. So when doing word for word changes. So as these tend to be much easier. Okay. Okay, then the last two steps that you should do. Let me write it here then. So let's say you've analyzed everything, you pick out your point as well, you have paraphrased as well. This is when you are actually writing things out. So finally, the last two things to take note of is one, use signpostings in your written work. So examples of signpostings, you can use additionally, while, also, furthermore, all of these are signpostings. However, as well, so it makes your points link much more smoothly. And then the last part, always count the number of words you have. Okay, ensure that it's 80 words and less. Anything more than that will not be marked at all. Okay, finally, we're at the last practice already. Just hold on a bit more. Last practice, I want you to try out the various paraphrasing strategies that we have just gone through. I think there are 5 exercises for you to do. Yes, 5 exercises. Can you take the time now? I'm going to give you 10 minutes. Make use of the paraphrasing strategies and then try to paraphrase these 5 points. Most of you done? Okay, looks like most of you are done. Let's run through this. This will be the last part, and then afterwards, I will just talk a bit more about the regular lessons. Do you mind helping me close the door? Okay, thank you. So these points here are points from the summary passage here, okay? So it's exactly the same thing, just that I picked out the points for you. I just want you to practice paraphrasing here. So let's take a look. I'm going to show you various strategies that you can use to paraphrase the points, and then just check against how you have paraphrased. If you have any questions afterwards, you can ask me about it at the end of the class as well. Okay. First point you have here, they became unaware of their surroundings, increasing the risk of accidents. Okay. So I want to change the part about unaware of their surroundings. This part, I want to change it using the synonym instead. So I can say it refers to the lack of environmental awareness. This is using synonym. Okay, then what this does is that this raises the chances of getting into, I'm going to change this part, risk of accidents. I'm going to explain what it means. This is referring to dangerous situations. Okay, this is using definition. So I'm using two strategies, synonym and definition as well. Point 2, social interactions are reduced. I would like to use a synonym to paraphrase this. So I can say social interactions, face-to-face communication. Okay, using synonym. Okay, hold on. Let me just answer some questions from the Zoom as well. If you are trying to paraphrase upping is not a standard English word, so that one, no. Casualties, yes. Vulnerable of their environment does not really indicate that they are more aware of the environment. Socializing is accepted, yes. I will accept that. Reduce to decrease can. Socializing is lessened, okay, can as well. Social interactions lowered, yes, also can. I will also accept oblivious to environment. Yeah, that's all good. Okay, those in class, any questions? I'm gonna check your answers instead. No? Okay, next one. Many prioritize entertainment such as Korean dramas, even when they are walking, which shows that digital content takes precedence over safety and courtesy. Okay, so here, quite a lot that you can paraphrase here. You can see that the majority of the people so they prefer streaming entertainment and they disregard the physical safety and social awareness. Okay, any questions? Whether you want to check your answers for this? Okay, if not, then I'm going to show the next one. Next, compulsive behaviors emerge. So this you can explain what do they mean by compulsive behavior. you can see that, sorry, leads to the habitual urge to check their phones constantly. So this is more on explaining what compulsive behavior you are referring to. So sort of your definition. Then the last, the addiction often causes physical pain. You can say that it leads to negative physical symptoms. This is more of using generalization because physical pain is one of your specific symptoms here. Okay, before you go anywhere, just let me finish up the last part of the information to you. Okay, notes online, all good? Okay, good. Okay, just let me run through this part. If you are interested in signing up for regular lessons or you think you want extra help, does not have to be in English, can be in the other subjects as well. Just let me tell you a bit about the regular lessons for 2026. Now, there is two ways that you can indicate your interest. One is by signing up directly. That can be found in the website, or you can go through this form, which is your early interest form. This does not mean that you are, what's that? You are confirmed joining the class. This is just, I'm a bit interested, but right now I'm also not so sure, okay? So this is just the indication form. As part of this as well is that we will help you reserve a slot if you are interested, also help you get the early perks benefits as well. Okay, so early perks benefit, what you will get is the curated notes. So I mentioned curated notes is your condensed notes. Other than just getting the particular subject that you are signing up for lessons for, you can get curated notes for other subjects as well. And then you get a cashback. So cashback, what you can do is to offset your lesson fees. Okay. So this is just for the early interest form. This can be found on our website as well, OVERMUGGED website. Okay. And then for your lower secondary, just take note, if you're interested in English in particular, we group the Sept 1s and Sept 2s together. So that's why it is lower secondary, but it's a combination of Sept 1 and Sept 2s, okay? But for other subjects, it's a separate class. Just take note for that. Okay, so if you're interested as well, you can find this on our website. The enrollment form for 2026 is already up too. Okay, then the last thing that would help is if you help us do a Google review about the revision session. Why so? Because this will help other people know about the revision session as well. And if you do a Google review and you show it to me, I will give you a free foolscap paper. Okay? If there's no other further questions, then you can leave already. Also, if you're doing the Google review, do help to quote my name as well. So my name is Miss Olivia or Teacher Olivia. Indicate which subject you came for too. Okay? If not, then the rest of you can go have your lunch already. I hope you had a good revision session. Lucas, page 17, that is just for you to look at how the summary questions are like. But the points that we went through for the consolidation exercise are the points for that summary question already. Just that it's only 5 points only. So you basically did the questions already. Submitted already? No. No, cannot enter as in?
Cannot post.
We cannot post.
All content like photos and videos of business isn't available for account. So under age of 17.
One. You scan for Tampines, right? Strange, I can access it.
Because we are like not like 80 years old, so like languages.
Okay, because you're using your school email, is it?
No, I'm using my own one.
Your own one.
No, because like when you register for like emails and stuff, you need to like put your age.
It's okay. I didn't know that. Okay. Then unfortunately, unfortunately.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay, guys.
But thing issue is is ours. For allocation of time, visual text aim to do it within 10 minutes. Summary within 15 minutes. And then you should have at least 10 remaining minutes for checking. And then the remainder of that time, then you use it for your two texts, your text 1 and text 2. Of course, you should be putting more time for text 1 comprehension, which is your narrative text. Actually, usually for paper 2, I would advise students to start with your narrative comprehension first because it's the most difficult. That's where you usually have a lot more language questions as well. Then you do the rest of the components.